Greetings and thanks for joining us again. This is Greg. We focus today on where Tesla currently is at, and we also want to look at something that's called an equilibrium challenge that Elon may be having, which is affecting what our outcomes are. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks for joining us once again. If this is your first time, welcome. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. We also want to thank our Patreon supporters. If you enjoy the show, would like some better ideas on investing and trading, please join us on Patreon. So I have to admit that we've been slow on shows because what I've actually found is that the number of subs that we have declines dramatically on negative Tesla stories. And so, as they say, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all, is one theory. So, as you know, the last few shows that we've done, we really focused on the fact that there is a little bit of an issue between the PE ratio height and where Tesla's stock price was, and that it would be very difficult for that to sort of be maintained. One of our viewers reminded me that I targeted about 250 as a price target for Tesla's stock, despite the run-up that we experienced when it came to the transition to Mr. Trump, etc. So today, I first want to, review some of the headlines. You probably already know all of them already. And then after reviewing the headlines, in terms of my viewpoint, sort of where are we headed next based on those headlines is sort of a two-part show today. So the first thing I wanted to review is that I'm seeing numbers that suggest that sales are really down in many parts of Europe, especially Germany. Elon's sort of activities of all sorts have seemed to affect people's thought process. And that's been in Germany, that's also been in the United States. I'd have to say that I'm a little bit confused by one point here that he's pointed out. Yes, you want government to be efficient, but I'm very surprised at the decision to fire all the inspector generals. And the reason is the way the process works is that we vote for the congressional people. The congressional people provide funding and decide what the agencies are that the government has. What then happens is that you have an entire IG or inspector general's portion of the government, and their job is to follow the money, the use of the money, and make sure that the intended purpose of those funds is what Congress had in mind. And if they're not in alignment, we then have a process where the IG or inspector general's offices would say to Congress, there's a problem with how these agencies are running relative to what your mandate is. So I want to confirm that there is no random government entities doing whatever they want to do. They actually get regularly audited, and they have to answer questions from those audits. Otherwise, they potentially lose funding or they get shut down. Now that we've moved to get rid of the IG folks, I just think this puts us in a very bad situation relative to, are we managing ourselves well based on getting rid of the IGs and then firing a bunch of people and then having to rehire them based on the fact that the work that they were doing was necessary and that you're going to have to hire people to do that work anyway. So this back and forth, I think, is definitely kind of wild. So one of the sort of sub-degrees I got at Stanford University was a degree in sociology. And one of the articles that sort of blew my mind that I read, and it was a combination with actually empirical events. So there's a famous rock group where one of the members of the famous band pointed out that there's a process that often happens where these guys get a whole bunch of money, and they are to some extent uncomfortable with that money. And so what happens is they'll go and parties, etc., and try to snort everything they can, consuming a lot of the money that they've earned. There's sort of a discomfort with it. In one of the sociology journals that I read, I was fascinated because there was a talk or discussion of the fact that most people have an equilibrium that equals where they were economically or where their family was when they were 18. And so that's about where the equilibrium is. And then often people who go well beyond that in terms of income are now in territory that's way beyond their sense of what equilibrium might be. So one point I wanted to share with this is that Elon actually got rid of all of his mansions in California, and I would think he's probably purchased something new. But what he did do was in Boca Chica, Texas, he actually built a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2 or 3,000 square foot home. And in my mind, it seems to me that there's an equilibrium factor relative to that house and what he might have grown up in, for much of his life into that 18-ish year old zone. So one of my suggestions of what I see happening here is that Elon is somewhat battling with his own sense of what his personal equilibrium might be. And I think that potentially leads to more activities that might be destructive to his wealth. Now, I have to say that I definitely see why, as you know, the stock price is down. We're back up into the 290s, but we're in the high 270s, etc. I believe that the destruction that's occurred has been pretty severe, but I think there's a combo destruction going on. We know that the market is crashing in general, and Tesla is part of that crash, but there's also this phenomenon of a large number of potential buyers are returning their cars or deciding not to buy a Tesla. And so I just think that the numbers for Tesla are going to be difficult for the foreseeable future, especially around Mr. Trump and Elon's hookup. But I'm wondering, I keep looking around for where the silver lining might be. It seems that there are a lot of people that are talking about what's going to happen with robotaxis and some of these other things that might occur. I'm hopeful that it works out because it's really painful watching good folks like yourself losing value of stock price as this thing plays out. So the answer that I see coming up is I see more destruction both of the stock market and of Tesla's stock price. I have to say that the final piece of what I wanted to cover this week, or today in particular, is I've been carefully watching Mr. Buffett's activities. As you know, we've discussed he's gone to $325 billion in cash. But there's another addition to what he's done that I thought was pretty amazing, and that is to trim or get rid of his indices on the S&P, as well as another index that he was focused on. So usually you could ride the S&P up and down and get nice returns that way. But I really think that this illustrates that he feels that there's going to be huge destruction of the stock market, a crash of some sort, driven by everything we see changing as we have the new administration and it's playing out. So I wanted to encourage you to sort of do some Googling on what Mr. Buffett is up to in terms of portfolio structure, and really think through, does the logic that he's using for completely, pulling back out of the market fit your sense of what's going to happen or what's going on? I have to say I agree with him. I just think that until the market has a clear sense that the process of Mr. Trump and Elon has come to an end and that we have some predictability of the future, I think the market's general sense of the unpredictable and the unknown means that there's going to be a lot of money lost by everybody involved and a lot of folks just pulling their cash out and waiting in cash. So I highly encourage you to consider that as an option as well. So I'd like to finish up here with our discussion of Tesla stock and what's going on in the markets currently. Next, I'd like to move on to our health tips. So I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but one of the things that I've found fascinating is when I was 7, I decided that I loved chocolate cake and that there was a conspiracy to keep me from eating chocolate cake all the time, because I could just eat chocolate cake sitting on a beach from breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then as I became adult, I rarely eat chocolate cake. It's too rich. Managing health is a little bit too difficult doing that. But I still like it. I'm just intrigued by what I wanted to eat and the reality of your health that might go with it. So I'm bringing that up today because I've been really learning about the impact of the body on different types of exercise as well as different types of eating. In particular, we encourage you to do a 20-minute walk every day to help with the cardio and all aspects of better living, healthier living. Also wanted to encourage you to consider incorporating 2 or 3 times a week of light weightlifting. Even carrying weights with you might not be a bad idea. The idea behind this is that you'll get better bone density, and there's a whole bunch of other healthy elements to your putting stress on your body in this way. And so I think that's the health tip I'd like to stick with today. Don't forget your 25 leg lifts each day to strengthen the quad muscles, limiting the chance of knee issues. Once again, I want to thank you for joining us. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Just a while lehitro or the half-as-rashiche. Ni hao mo, or konbanwa, arrivederci, namaste. And in Jamaica, we say enough respect, walk good. Thanks and have a good day. Goodbye for now.